The crystal beings aboard the research ship Gentle Current had never known fear like this. Captain Zielnara watched her instruments with growing worry as the main engine sputtered and died. The ship shook one last time before floating silent in the cold darkness of space. "Engineer Veltar, what is our status?" she asked, her voice making tiny bell sounds through the ship's communication system. The young engineer's crystal body flickered with nervous blue light. "Captain, the fusion core has failed completely. We have emergency power only. Life support will last maybe 10 days. Zielnara felt her core temperature drop. They were 3 weeks away from the nearest hegemony outpost. No ship traveled this far into the empty regions between star systems. The Gentle Current was a science vessel, built for studying distant planets, not for surviving emergencies. "Send out a distress call," she ordered. "All frequencies. Maybe someone will hear us." Veltar's fingers danced over the communication controls. The message was simple and direct. Ship coordinates, engine failure, 43 crew members needing rescue. The transmission would travel faster than light through subspace, reaching any ship with the right equipment. The signal spread outward like ripples in a pond. It reached the busy trade routes near hegemony space first. Several cargo ships detected it but were too far away to help. A military patrol considered responding but decided the risk was too great. The empty frontier was dangerous, and 43 alien lives were not worth losing a warship. The signal kept traveling, moving beyond the borders of known space. It passed dead systems and empty worlds where no one lived to hear it. For days, the message raced through the void, growing weaker with each light year. On a small blue planet in an unknown star system, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen was finishing her night shift at the Deep Space Communications Array. She had been monitoring space for 3 years and had never heard anything more interesting than solar static. Earth had only recently learned to listen to the stars, and the stars had been silent. Until tonight. The computer made a soft beeping sound. Sarah looked at her screen and saw something that made her heart race. The signal was clearly artificial, definitely not natural radio noise. Strange patterns of sound and mathematics filled her headphones. "Computer, run translation protocol," she said, her hands shaking slightly. The computer worked for several minutes trying to understand the alien language. Most of it failed, but some parts came through clearly. Numbers, coordinates, and one word that made Sarah's blood run cold. "Help." She called her supervisor immediately. "Major Peterson, you need to see this. We have an alien distress call." 20 minutes later, the communications center was full of people. Scientists, military officers, and government officials all crowded around Sarah's workstation. The translation software had improved the message slightly. They could now make out ship specifications, crew numbers, and approximate location. "It's real," whispered Dr. Martinez, the chief linguist. "We're not alone." Admiral Marcus Kane arrived within an hour. He was a large man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had commanded Earth's first deep space fleet for 5 years, always hoping for this moment. "How far away are they?" he asked. Sarah checked her calculations again. "About 40 light years. With our fastest ships, we could reach them in 6 days. What's their condition?" "Engine failure. Limited life support. They need rescue soon or—" Sarah didn't finish the sentence. Admiral Kane was quiet for a long moment. This was it. Humanity's first contact with alien life. Not the peaceful meeting that everyone had imagined, but a rescue mission. He thought about the dozens of ships under his command, all built for exploration and defense. They had never been tested against alien technology, but they were the only hope these beings had. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them help is coming. And prep the Indomitable for immediate departure. Full fleet escort." Sarah typed the response message, hoping the translation would work. "Message sent, sir." Admiral Kane looked around the room at all the excited faces. "People, this changes everything. We're about to meet our first alien species. I want our best people on this mission. We get one chance to make a good first impression." Captain Maria Santos was sleeping when the call came. She had commanded the UES Indomitable for 2 years and had never received an emergency deployment order. She dressed quickly and ran to the spaceport. The Indomitable was beautiful in the morning light. 300 meters of advanced human engineering, armed with kinetic weapons and protected by thick armor plating. She was built to explore dangerous space and fight if necessary. Today she would do both. "Captain Santos, we have a situation." Admiral Kane said as she arrived on the bridge. He explained everything quickly while the crew prepared for departure. Santos listened carefully. She had trained for first contact scenarios, but never like this. A rescue mission was actually perfect. It would show these aliens that humans could be trusted and helpful. "How many ships are we taking?" she asked. "Full battle group. 12 ships. We don't know what's out there." Santos nodded. Better to be safe. They were going into completely unknown space to meet completely unknown beings. The alien distress call could be real or it could be a trap. Either way, they would be ready. The human fleet launched 6 hours later. 12 ships accelerated away from Earth, their fusion drives pushing them toward the edge of human space. Admiral Kane rode aboard the Indomitable, watching Earth shrink to a tiny blue dot behind them. "Jump coordinates locked in," reported the navigation officer. "We'll reach the aliens in 6 days. Take us out," Kane ordered. The ships entered hyperspace with flashes of bright light. They were carrying humanity's hopes and fears toward their first meeting with alien life. None of them knew that their reputation had already spread across the galaxy. None of them knew that half the known universe was preparing for war. On the gentle current, Captain Zielnara received the human reply message. The translation was terrible, but she could understand enough. Someone had heard them. Someone was coming to help. "How long until rescue?" asked Veltar. Zielnara checked the message again. The math was strange, but it seemed to indicate 6 or 7 days. "Soon," she said. "Hold on just a little longer." She didn't tell her crew about the other parts of the message that the computer couldn't translate. Words that might mean weapons or fleet or war. She chose to believe that help was coming, not death. In the cold emptiness of space, the gentle current waited. Its crew had no idea that 12 human warships were racing toward them at impossible speed. They had no idea that their simple distress call had started a chain of events that would change the galaxy forever. The rescue was coming, but so was something else. Something that would make the peaceful Catherians question everything they thought they knew about the universe and the creatures that lived in it. Admiral Kane stood on his bridge, watching the stars stream past in hyperspace. Tomorrow, humanity would take its first step into galactic civilization. He hoped they were ready for what they might find. The news traveled fast through hegemony space. Long-range sensors had detected something moving toward the Catherian distress beacon. Something big, fast, and completely unknown. Elder Counselor Vexithala received the report in her office on the capital world of Nexus Prime. She was old, even for her species. Her scaled skin had turned silver with age, and her 4 eyes had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. But this report made her feel young and afraid again. "Show me the sensor data," she said to Commander Yalth, the head of military intelligence. The holographic display showed a cluster of unknown ships moving through space at incredible speed. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in the hegemony database. Primitive fusion drives, but pushing their ships faster than should be possible. "Where did they come from?" Vexthala asked. "The Galactic Rim, Elder, from the direction of the outer spiral arm. We've never had contact with anyone from that region." Vexithala felt a chill in her bones. The outer rim was considered impossible to live in. Too much radiation, too many asteroids, too many dead worlds. Only myths and legends came from that direction. "Call an emergency council meeting," she ordered. "And bring Dr. Krillmoth." "We need the xenobiology expert." Within hours, the Galactic Council chamber was full. Representatives from dozens of species gathered around the central hologram. They spoke in many different languages, but the universal translator made their fear clear. Dr. Krillmoth was a thin, insect-like being with compound eyes and careful movements. He had studied alien life for 50 years and had never seen anything like this. "Council members," he began, "I have searched our archives for any information about species from the outer rim. What I found is disturbing." The hologram changed to show ancient star charts and old records. Most were incomplete, damaged by time and war. "These records are over 2,000 years old," Krillmoth continued. "They speak of a species that evolved on what we would classify as a class of teens death world. A planet so hostile that life should not exist there." Murmurs of disbelief filled the chamber. Class Twine was the highest danger rating. Even Class 6 worlds required environmental suits for most species. "What kind of conditions are we talking about?" asked Representative Thoxall from the Merchant Guild. Krillmoth activated another display. Temperature swings from -40 degrees to +50 degrees Celsius. Gravity 3 times what most of us consider normal. An atmosphere containing 21% pure oxygen. Several council members gasped. Pure oxygen was explosively dangerous. Most species breathed much safer gas mixtures. The surface is 70% liquid water, Krillmoth continued. Unfiltered radiation from their star. Frequent seismic activity. Weather patterns that include frozen water falling from the sky and electrical storms with enough power to destroy cities. Nothing could evolve in those conditions, protested Dr. Velnara, the hegemony's chief scientist. The records suggest otherwise, Krillmoth replied. According to these ancient texts, the dominant species not only survived these conditions but used them to become stronger. They developed dense bone structures to handle the gravity. Their blood carries oxygen in a way that would be toxic to most of us. Their skin can resist radiation that would kill other beings in minutes. The council chamber fell silent. This sounded like a description of living weapons, not a civilized species. What happened to them? Fexthala asked quietly. The records end abruptly, Krillmoth said. The last entry mentions something about them developing controlled fusion and kinetic projectile weapons. After that, nothing. Most scholars assumed they destroyed themselves. Commander Yalth stood up. But our sensors show them moving toward the Kytherian ship. If these are the same beings, they're not extinct. They're coming. The implications hit everyone at once. A species that could survive on a death world had just detected a helpless civilian ship. The Kytherians were peaceful researchers with no weapons and no defenses. We have to assume the worst, Vexthala said. These Deathworlders are probably raiders. They detected the distress call and are moving to capture or destroy the Kytherians. What do we do? Asked Representative Mordek from the Defense Coalition. Vexthala looked around the chamber. Every species represented here had evolved on safe, comfortable worlds. They had never faced anything like this. We mobilize the fleet, she decided. Full military response. If these creatures want a fight, we'll give them one. Admiral Threshikala received his orders an hour later. He was a veteran of 3 galactic wars and had never lost a battle. His fleet of 50 battleships was the finest force in hegemony space. But as he read the intelligence report, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Doubt. Sir, said his aide, a young Altarian with nervous tentacles. The ship configurations don't match any known designs. Their armor appears to be simple metal alloys, but it's incredibly thick. Our energy weapons should cut through it easily. Threshkala studied the tactical display. The human ships looked crude and primitive. No elegant curves or advanced materials. Just thick metal and powerful engines. What about their weapons? He asked. Unknown, sir. We're detecting what might be missile ports and some kind of magnetic launch systems. Very primitive compared to our plasma cannons. Threshkala nodded, but something still bothered him. Any species that could survive on a death world wouldn't build weak ships. There had to be something they were missing. Set course for the Kytherian position, he ordered. Maximum speed. And send a message to all ships. We're dealing with unknown hostiles from a death world. Take no chances. Meanwhile, on research stations across the galaxy, scientists were pulling up every piece of information they could find about death worlds. The stories they discovered made their blood run cold. Dr. Zintara, a specialist in planetary evolution, found records of worlds where the surface was covered in molten rock, where the air itself was poison, where massive creatures with teeth and claws fought constantly for survival. According to the old texts, beings from such worlds didn't just survive, they thrived on conflict. They don't just fight to defend themselves, she explained to her research team. They fight for sport, for territory, for dominance. Violence is how they solve problems. The more they learned, the more terrified they became. These Deathworlders had somehow developed space travel while maintaining their savage nature. They were probably expanding outward from their horrible world, looking for new places to conquer. By the time Admiral Threshkala's fleet reached the intercept point, half the galaxy knew what was coming. The peaceful Kytherians were about to become the first victims of a Deathworlder invasion. Long-range communications buzzed with warnings and preparations. Trade routes were closed. Defensive fleets moved to protect key worlds. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy prepared for a war unlike any they had ever fought. None of them realized they were wrong about everything. The savage Deathworlders were actually coming to help, carrying medical supplies and friendship messages. The invasion fleet was a rescue mission led by people who had never hurt an innocent being in their lives. But fear makes people do terrible things. And the hegemony fleet was very, very afraid. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the alien ship grow larger on the main screen. The gentle current looked nothing like human vessels. It was all smooth curves and crystal-like surfaces that caught the light of distant stars. Beautiful design, commented Lieutenant Torres, the ship's engineer. Looks more like artwork than a spaceship, Santos nodded. The alien vessel was clearly built by a peaceful species. No weapon ports, minimal armor, elegant lines that prioritized beauty over protection. It made her feel better about this first contact mission. Distance to target? She asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, reported the navigation officer. We should be in communication range soon. Santos turned to Dr. Williams, the linguistics expert they had brought for this mission. Are you ready with the first contact protocols? Dr. Williams checked his tablet nervously. I've prepared several universal friendship messages. Mathematics, basic chemistry, star charts showing our home system. Standard peaceful contact procedure. Good. Let's make a good first impression. Admiral Kane watched from his position behind the captain's chair. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with alien intelligence. He hoped it would go smoothly. Admiral, called the communications officer. I'm detecting multiple ships on long-range sensors. Large vessels approaching fast from the opposite direction. Kane moved to the sensor station. The display showed a fleet of unknown ships heading toward them. 50 contacts, all much larger than human vessels. Distance and time to intercept? Kane asked. They'll reach us in about 2 hours, sir. And Admiral, their energy signatures suggest heavy weapons. This looks like a military fleet. Kane felt his stomach drop. They had come here to rescue helpless civilians. But now they were facing what looked like an alien battle fleet. Were these ships here to help? Or were they the reason the research vessel needed rescuing? Captain Santos, change course to put us between the alien research ship and that incoming fleet, Kane ordered. Sir? Santos looked confused. We don't know who those ships belong to or what they want. Until we do, we protect the civilians. Santos understood immediately. The research vessel was helpless and defenseless. Whatever the situation was, her duty was clear. Helm, move us into defensive position. All ships formed protective formation around the alien vessel. The human fleet moved smoothly into position. 12 warships arranged themselves in a protective sphere around the gentle current. Their weapon systems came online, not to attack but to defend. Aboard the Catherian ship, Captain Zilnara watched the approaching rescue fleet with growing amazement. The alien ships were unlike anything she had ever seen. Thick armor, powerful engines, and what looked like weapon systems built for serious combat. Are they military vessels? Asked Engineer Veltar. I think so, Zilnara replied. But why would a military fleet respond to our distress call? She had no way of knowing that the humans thought they were protecting her from the hegemony fleet. She also had no way of knowing that the hegemony fleet thought the humans were raiders who had come to capture her ship. Admiral Threshkala received the sensor data with growing alarm. The unknown Deathworlder ships had positioned themselves defensively around the Catherian vessel. It was exactly what raiders would do, protect their prize while preparing for battle. Sir, reported his tactical officer, the enemy ships have activated their weapon systems, primitive kinetic weapons and some kind of missile system. Threshkala studied the tactical display. The human formation was actually quite clever. They had positioned their strongest ships to block any rescue attempt while keeping the research vessel safely behind them. Open a communication channel, he ordered. Let's try to resolve this peacefully. The message that went out was translated by the ship's computer into what it thought was the Deathworlder language. Unfortunately, the computer had only ancient fragments to work with, and many of the translations were wrong. Unknown vessels, the message began. You are holding civilian researchers against their will. Release them immediately or face the consequences. When the human translation computer received this message, it struggled with the alien language. Dr. Williams worked frantically to understand it. But the best he could manage was fragments, unknown vessels, civilian researchers, consequences. It sounds like a threat. Dr. Williams reported to Admiral Kane. I think they're demanding we surrender the research ship. Kane felt anger rising in his chest. So these were the bad guys after all. They wanted to capture helpless civilians and they were threatening the humans for trying to protect them. Send a reply, Kane ordered. Tell them we're here on a rescue mission. The research vessel requested help and we're providing it. If they try to harm these civilians, we'll stop them. Again, the translation computer mangled the message. What the hegemony fleet received sounded like, rescue mission. Requested help. We'll stop them. To Admiral Threshkala, this confirmed his worst fears. The Deathworlders were claiming the Catherians had requested help. Obviously a lie. They were threatening to stop any rescue attempt. All ships, battle stations, Threshkala ordered grimly. Prepare to engage the enemy. Captain Santos watched the alien fleet approach with growing tension. The ships were huge, each one the size of a small city. Their weapons were beginning to glow with some kind of energy buildup. Admiral, I'm reading massive power spikes from the incoming fleet, reported the tactical officer. They're charging weapons. Kane made a quick decision. All ships, raise shields and prepare for combat. But do not fire first. We're here to protect civilians, not start a war. The two fleets faced each other across the empty space around the gentle current. Both sides believed they were in the right. Both sides thought the other was the aggressor. And both sides were preparing to fight for what they believed was justice. On the Catherian research ship, Captain Zielnara watched in horror as two massive fleets prepared for battle around her helpless vessel. She tried to send messages to both sides, but her communication system was damaged and weak. This is insane, she whispered to Veltar. They're going to destroy each other over us. Should we try to escape? Veltar asked. With what? Our engines are dead. We can barely maintain life support. The first shots came from a nervous hegemony gunner who thought he saw the humans targeting his ship. Bright blue energy beams lanced out across space, striking the human destroyer Yorktown. We're under attack, shouted the Yorktown's captain over the communications channel. Admiral Kane watched the enemy energy weapons splash harmlessly against his ship's armor. The weapons were powerful, but they seemed designed to fight other energy-based technology. Against human kinetic barriers and thick metal armor, they were much less effective. All ships return fire, Kane ordered. Protect the research vessel at all costs. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Missiles streaked across space while magnetic railguns fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The weapons were crude compared to alien energy technology, but they hit like hammers. Admiral Threshkala watched in shock as human projectiles punched through his ship's energy shields as if they weren't there. His beautiful plasma cannons, designed to fight elegant space battles, were useless against enemies who fought like barbarians. How are they penetrating our shields? He demanded. Sir, their weapons aren't energy-based, his tactical officer reported. They're firing solid metal at extremely high speeds. Our shields aren't designed to stop physical projectiles. The battle raged around the helpless Catherian ship. Neither side wanted to hurt the civilians, but both were convinced they were fighting to save them. Energy beams and metal slugs filled the space between the fleets as two civilizations met for the first time in the worst possible way. Captain Zielnara watched the violence with tears in her crystal eyes. This was supposed to be a joyous moment, first contact between her people and others. Instead, it had become a nightmare of misunderstanding and war. She had no way of knowing that both fleets were trying to save her. And she had no way of knowing that this terrible battle would eventually lead to something beautiful. The space battle quickly turned into something Admiral Threshkala had never seen before. Human ships moved in ways that defied every rule of civilized space combat. They rolled and twisted through 3 dimensions, pulling maneuvers that should have killed their crews from the acceleration forces. How are they still alive? Demanded Threshkala as he watched a human cruiser spin like a drill while firing in all directions. Those acceleration forces would turn any crew into paste. His science officer checked the readings again. Sir, our sensors show they're pulling over 12 standard gravities. No known species can survive that. But the humans not only survived, they seemed to enjoy it. Their ships danced through space like deadly fighters, using their superior maneuverability to stay ahead of the hegemony's larger, more powerful vessels. Captain Santos felt the familiar weight of high-G maneuvers pressing her into her command chair. Years of training in Earth's chaotic asteroid fields had prepared her crew for exactly this kind of combat. While the alien ships moved in predictable formations, human vessels fought like individual hunters. Target their weapon systems, she ordered. We need to disable them, not destroy them. The human fleet had been designed for survival first and elegance second. Every system had backups. Every surface was armored. Their ships looked primitive compared to the sleek hegemony vessels, but they could take enormous punishment and keep fighting. A hegemony plasma cannon struck the Indomitable directly on the main hull. The energy beam, powerful enough to vaporize most ships, barely scorched the thick armor plating. "Damage report," Santos called out. "Minor surface scoring on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer. "No penetration. All systems nominal," Santos smiled grimly. Human ships were built to survive anything from solar flares to asteroid impacts. Elegant energy weapons were almost gentle by comparison. Meanwhile, human kinetic weapons were causing havoc in the hegemony fleet. Metal projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic railguns, punched through energy shields and armor like they were paper. The aliens had never faced weapons that ignored their sophisticated defensive systems. Admiral Threshkala watched another of his battleships take heavy damage from what the humans called primitive weapons. The metal slugs tore through his ship's hull and kept going, causing massive internal damage. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we're damaging them," his tactical officer reported. "Their armor is too thick and our weapons aren't designed for this kind of target." Threshkala felt the bitter taste of defeat. His fleet was larger and more advanced, but the humans fought with a savagery that made their technical disadvantages meaningless. Aboard the Gentle Current, Captain Zeel Nara watched the battle with growing amazement. The human ship seemed to be winning despite being outnumbered 4-1. But something else had caught her attention. "Veltar, look at this," she said, pointing to her sensors. "One of the human ships is heading directly for us." Engineer Veltar checked the readings. "A small ship. Maybe a shuttle. What do they want?" Before Zeel Nara could answer, the human shuttle had docked with their ship. She could hear the airlock cycling as someone came aboard. Her crew gathered nervously as heavy footsteps approached the bridge. The door opened, and Captain Zeel Nara got her first look at a human being. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the doorway wearing full combat armor. Her helmet was sealed against the toxic Cytherian atmosphere, and her movements were careful but confident. Behind her came a team of human marines, all armed but carrying what looked like medical equipment. "Don't be afraid," Chen said through her suit's translator. "We're here to help." Zeel Nara stared at the alien figure. The human was shorter than most Cytherians, but built much more solidly. Even through the armor, she could see powerful muscles designed for high gravity and harsh conditions. You came to rescue us?" Zeel Nara asked in amazement. "That's why we're here," Chen replied. "Your distress call reached our world. We came as fast as we could." One of the human marines was checking the ship's atmospheric readings. "Commander, we've got toxic gas leaks in sections 4 and 7. And there's a radiation leak from their damaged power core." Chen nodded and turned to address the Cytherian crew. "We need to evacuate the dangerous areas and get you medical attention. Some of you have been exposed to harmful radiation." Zeel Nara watched in amazement as the humans began moving through her ship without environmental suits in areas that would kill most beings instantly. They walked through radiation fields that made her detectors scream warnings. They sealed toxic gas leaks with their bare hands while holding their breath for impossibly long periods. "How are they doing that?" Veltar whispered. One of the human medics, Sergeant Rodriguez, was treating a young Cytherian who had been injured when the engines failed. The injury was in a section of the ship where the artificial gravity had failed and dangerous radiation was leaking from damaged systems. Rodriguez simply removed his helmet and entered the contaminated area. He worked quickly, applying human medical technology to alien physiology, while radiation that would kill most species washed over him harmlessly. His homeworld must be incredibly dangerous, Zeel Nara realized. They evolved to survive things that would destroy us. The battle continued to rage outside, but now Commander Chen was coordinating with both fleets. Her translation equipment was better than the military systems, and she was finally able to make both sides understand what was really happening. "Admiral Kane, the hegemony fleet thinks we're raiders," she reported over the communication channel. "They came here to rescue the Cytherians from us." "What?" Kane's voice was full of surprise. "We're all here for the same reason?" "Yes, sir. This is all a massive misunderstanding." Admiral Threshkala received the same information from his own communications officer. The primitive translation systems had been getting everything wrong. The humans weren't raiders. They were rescuers, just like his own fleet. But by now, the battle had taken on a life of its own. Both fleets had taken damage and lost crew members. Even though the misunderstanding was clear, the fighting continued as neither side wanted to be the first to stop shooting. That changed when the Catherians themselves entered the communication channel. Captain Zielnara's voice, speaking both human and hegemony languages, filled the communication networks of both fleets. "Please stop fighting," she begged. "Both of your species came to save us. You're destroying each other over a mistake." The weapons fire slowly died away as both fleets realized what had happened. The humans had come to rescue innocent civilians. The hegemony had come to rescue innocent civilians. Both sides had been trying to do the right thing, but the damage was done. Ships from both fleets were heavily damaged. Crew members were dead or injured. And first contact between humanity and galactic civilization had begun with a battle that neither side had wanted. Admiral Kane looked around his bridge at the damage reports. 3 human ships were severely damaged, and they had lost almost 200 crew members. The hegemony fleet had suffered even worse casualties. "Admiral Threshkala," Kane said over the communication channel, "I think we need to talk." "Agreed," came the reply. "But first let's take care of the wounded." "Both are wounded." Human and hegemony medical ships moved carefully toward each other through the debris field. The war was over before it had really begun, but the consequences would last for generations. Captain Santos supervised the evacuation of the Catherian research crew to human medical ships. As she watched human doctors working alongside alien patients, she realized something important had happened here. Yes, first contact had been a disaster, but it had also been a revelation. Both humans and the hegemony species had risked everything to save innocent lives. Maybe that was more important than the mistakes that had led to fighting. The battle was over, but the real story was just beginning. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Kane stood in the medical bay of the Indomitable, watching something that amazed him. Human doctors were working side by side with hegemony medics, treating wounded from both fleets. The language barriers were still difficult, but medicine seemed to be universal. Dr. Sarah Park, the fleet's chief medical officer, was explaining human anatomy to a fascinated Altarian surgeon. "Our bones are much denser than yours because of our high-gravity homeworld," she said through the translation device. "But our organs are surprisingly similar." The Altarian doctor, whose name translated roughly as Healer Zix, was equally amazed by human resilience. "Your crew member survived direct exposure to plasma radiation for over 3 minutes. That should have killed him instantly. We evolved on a planet with a lot of natural radiation," Dr. Park explained. "Our cells have special repair mechanisms. We're tougher than we look." Admiral Threshkala arrived with a small diplomatic party. He was a tall, reptilian being with scales that changed color based on his emotions. Right now, they showed deep regret and curiosity. "Admiral Kane," Threshkala said through his translator, "I owe you and your species a formal apology. We misunderstood your intentions completely." Kane nodded respectfully. "We all made mistakes, Admiral. The important thing is that we're talking now instead of fighting." Elder Counselor Vexithala had arrived from the hegemony capital on the fastest ship available. She needed to see these Deathworlders for herself. What she found was nothing like the monsters from ancient legends. Captain Zielnara gave her a detailed report of the human rescue operation. "They risked their lives for us," the Catherian explained. "Their soldiers entered areas of our ship that would have killed any of us instantly. They didn't hesitate to help even though we were complete strangers." Vexthala listened carefully, but she needed to see for herself. She asked to tour one of the human ships, and Admiral Kane personally gave her the tour of the Indomitable. The human warship was unlike anything she had ever seen. Everything was built heavily, with thick armor and redundant systems. But it wasn't the technology that impressed her. It was the crew. She watched human engineers working alongside hegemony technicians to repair battle damage. She saw human cooks preparing food that alien species could safely eat. She observed human pilots teaching hegemony pilots how to handle emergency maneuvers. "Your people adapt very quickly," she commented to Admiral Kane. "We have to," Kane replied. "Our homeworld taught us that things change fast and you either adapt or die. I guess that makes us good at working with new situations." Dr. Krillmoth, the hegemony's xenobiology expert, had been studying the humans with their permission. His findings were revolutionary. "Council members," he reported in a special session, Everything we thought we knew about Deathworld species was wrong. Yes, they evolved under extreme conditions. Yes, they are incredibly resilient. But they're not savage warriors, they're cooperative survivors. He showed brain scans and psychological profiles. Their high-stress environment didn't make them violent. It made them incredibly good at working together under pressure. They have an instinctive drive to help others in danger. The data was clear. Humans had evolved not just to survive harsh conditions, but to survive them together. Their pack-bonding instincts were stronger than any species the hegemony had ever encountered. They literally cannot ignore a cry for help, Dr. Krillmoth explained. When they detected the Catherian distress call, their entire government mobilized within hours. Not for profit, not for territory, but simply because someone needed help. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news of first contact had changed everything. Humans were glued to their communication devices, following every detail of the meeting with alien civilizations. President Chen addressed the world from the United Nations building. Today, humanity takes its first steps into a larger universe. We've learned that we're not alone. And we've learned that the values we cherish, helping others, protecting the innocent, working together, are not unique to Earth. The response from the galactic community was mixed. Some species were fascinated by the humans and wanted to learn more. Others were still afraid of the Deathworlders and their military capabilities. But Captain Zielnara became humanity's strongest advocate. She traveled throughout hegemony space, telling her story to anyone who would listen. They saved us without asking for anything in return, she would say. They fought a battle they didn't want, against people they didn't know, to protect strangers from a species they had never met. That's not the behavior of monsters. That's the behavior of heroes. Her testimony, combined with the footage from the rescue mission, began to change public opinion. The galaxy watched human medics treating alien patients with the same care they showed their own people. They saw human engineers sharing their technology freely, asking for nothing but friendship in return. Dr. Velnara, the hegemony's chief scientist, worked closely with human researchers to understand their technology. What she found surprised her. Their equipment is designed for survival first and efficiency second, she reported. Every system has multiple backups. Every tool can be repaired with basic materials. They build things to last in dangerous conditions. The humans, meanwhile, were amazed by hegemony technology. Their elegant energy systems and advanced materials were far beyond anything Earth had developed. But the aliens were equally impressed by human engineering philosophy. They think differently than we do, explained Engineer Torres to a group of Altarian technicians. We design things to work perfectly in perfect conditions. They design things to work adequately in terrible conditions. When everything goes wrong, human equipment keeps working. Trade agreements were signed within weeks. The hegemony needed human durability and adaptability. Humans needed alien knowledge and advanced technology. Both sides had something valuable to offer. More importantly, friendships were forming. Human and alien crew members who had fought against each other were now working together. The shared experience of combat, followed by the shared work of healing, had created bonds that crossed species lines. Admiral Kane found himself working closely with Admiral Thresh Kala to develop new joint military protocols. The hegemony's elegant tactics combined with human adaptability created something stronger than either could achieve alone. Your people fight like they're personally responsible for everyone's safety, Thresh Kala observed during a strategy session, aren't we? Kane replied, genuinely confused. It was that attitude, the idea that everyone was responsible for everyone else, that made the biggest impression on galactic civilization. Most species looked out for their own kind first. Humans seemed to consider all intelligent life worth protecting. 6 months later, Elder Counselor Vex Thala stood before the full Galactic Council to deliver a historic speech. I propose that we extend a formal invitation to the human species to join the galactic hegemony, she announced. Not as junior members, but as full partners. They have proven themselves worthy not through conquest, but through compassion. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Kane received the invitation while orbiting Earth in the newly constructed space station Unity, a joint human-alien project. As he read the formal document, he thought about the long journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple distress call, a cry for help from strangers in the darkness. Humanity had answered that call without hesitation, and in doing so, had found their place among the stars. Captain Santos, now commanding the first joint human-alien exploration fleet, summed it up best in her personal log. "We came to rescue 43 alien civilians. Instead, we rescued ourselves from loneliness in the universe. The galaxy was no longer the same. The arrival of the Deathworlders had changed everything, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of bringing war and destruction, humanity had brought something much more powerful. The idea that no one should face danger alone, and in the vast darkness of space, that made all the difference.